Hello and welcome to Almost Cult Classics, the podcast. My name is Joe Ramoni, and with me, as always, is my friend and co-host, Mr. Ryan Lancello.
Bienvenido a Casi Clásico de Corto.
Exactly. Thank you for your patience. It's been a while since we put out an episode. It's been a little hectic for us. We also really don't want to have to do this podcast virtually.
No, we never will.
Yeah.
That's one thing. I never want to do a Zoom show or it's not good.
Yeah, a lot of our conversations, the way they happen, very organically. It's not something that carries over well with a virtual format. You can't really read each other's body language or thoughts. It kind of you trample over each other, and so that's why it's been a little while. But we're here. We're here to talk about the Ladykillers, 2004.
Right. And plus, I always do we always do these. I do it in the nude, and Joe appreciates that.
Yes.
So it's across Zoom.
It's not gonna work out.
No, it's not gonna translate.
But we're talking about the Ladykillers from 2004, which is I think our first remake on the show.
Yeah. Yes, it is.
We've done with adaptations. I mean, you could technically call this an adaptation. It's remake of a 1955 film, The Ladykillers.
Technically, it's an adaptation. I mean, here's the thing. I thought the Coens had done two remakes with this and True Grit, but True Grit was a book.
Yeah, it's based.
So
their adaptation is more based on the book.
I'd say that's an adaptation. This is a remake.
Yeah,
straight up of the 1951 English film, The Ladykillers.
55 or 51?
I have 51 written down.
Okay.
I could be wrong, though.
We'll cross-reference that. It's one of the two.
Actually, I think you're right. Actually, I took my notes wrong here. It's 55. I'm just going to do that for myself.
Last episode, you'd say you do your fours differently. Do you do your fives differently in a way that you can't?
Yeah, they look like ones.
So the original, if you've never seen it, it stars Alec Guinness, Herbert Lom, who's wonderful, Peter Sellers in a very early film role.
Yeah, I mean, he considers it kind of his first proper role.
Oh, does he?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, he it's not like typical Peter Sellers.
Well, he's kind of like the young guy in the group.
Yeah.
So he's like, he doesn't have a ton to do, but, he's not doing like voices and characters like Peter Sellers is kind of known for.
Yeah.
But it's a good role for him.
Yeah, so the original Ladykillers, it's basically about these guys rob an armored truck in London, are they in? They're in London, they rob this truck, and they're staying at they kind of come up with a plan at the house of an elderly woman that they're renting a room from. Professor Marcus, who is Alec Guinness's character, is renting this room, but they kind of make her an accessory without her knowing to the crime.
Technically, I mean, I did watch it. Matter of fact, I watched all the Ealing Studios was a London. I mean, I guess every country still makes movies, but London used to have a serious film scene. Ealing Studios was one of them, and they did 4 comedies with Alec Guinness, all of which I'll recommend. I'll go through them real quick. 1949, you got Kind Hearts and Coronets, which is a great movie because Alec Guinness plays 9 different roles. And stories about a guy who he's like the black sheep of a rich family, the Coen family. And basically, he's going to kill them all so he can become the Duke.
Okay. And
Alec Guinness plays the
whole
Coen family.
Wow.
It's great. It's really fun. And that's one I'm shocked no one's ever tried to remake. Because you figure you get an actor who has the range.
Yeah.
And then you pit him against another guy, and it's like I am so shocked no one's ever tried to remake Kind Hearts Coronets. After that, you got Man in the White Suit, which is really good. It's almost like he makes a fabric that never needs to be washed and can't be stained.
Okay.
And initially, everyone's like, "Wow, this is amazing," and then you start to realize like everyone hates it because the factory managers hate it because they can only sell it once.
Right.
And the factory workers hate it because they can only make it once. So it's very interesting. It's like, what if you made the perfect battery that never ran out? It would kind of fuck up industry and economies, blah, 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 blah. Cool movie. Lavender Hill Mob.
That's one I've seen.
Which you see.
I really like that movie.
Very good movie.
Yeah.
Really cool. Another heist movie. This and The Ladykillers are both heist movies. Mm-hmm. And Lavender Hill Mob has one thing that's really cool about it if you watch it. It's made in 1951, but it's filmed on the streets of London, and you can actually see a lot of bombed-out London from the war.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like they're still reconstructing. It looks dusty. It's really kind of cool. And, all these movies are shot really well, too.
So excluding Alec Guinness and the studio, is there any ties that these have overall? The films? Is there a creative team behind the scenes that's the same, or is it just Guinness?
I think Man in the White Suit and Ladykillers was directed by Alexander McKendrick.
Okay.
I think it was basically, think of the Hollywood studio system of the 30s, 40s, and 50s.
Yeah.
Put it in England.
Yeah, sure.
This is just it's Ealing Studios. in that sense, I think they had their stable of people when it came to cast and crew.
Sure.
And they were lucky enough to get Alec Guinness for 4 excellent movies.
Yeah. So, yeah, we're talking about the remake of that 55 movie, The Ladykillers, which was written and directed by the Coen Brothers. I like the Coen Brothers. You love the Coen Brothers?
For my money, they're kind of the best.
Yeah. Well, this movie's a weird choice for them, and I don't know if you read this too, but I read that they weren't supposed to direct it. It was supposed to be Barry Levinson.
No, not Barry Levinson. Barry Sonnenfeld.
Barry Sonnenfeld.
Sonnenfeld?
Did he do Get Shorty?
He did Get Shorty, Men in Black, Wild Wild West.
Wow.
He was also their cinematographer. So if you watch like Miller's Crossing, like Sonnenfeld did the cinematography for that.
I thought that was Deakins.
Nope.
He came in after.
Deakins came in later.
Okay.
And Deakins is God.
Yeah.
But Barry Sonnenfeld is pretty good.
Yeah. No, he's a really eccentric filmmaker, and that makes a lot more sense. Knowing that he did Get Shorty, he kind of did a heist, or not a heist, but a crime movie. I see it might have been tailored for him a little bit more.
Yeah. This is a weird. This is like okay. So I'm looking at their filmography right here, the Coen Brothers.
Yeah. Give some number so people know exactly.
They've done 18 movies, right? Mm-hmm. In my humble opinion, they've never made a bad movie. I don't think they've ever made a bad movie where you're like, I don't even want to watch this. Every movie they've done, in my opinion, is worthwhile to watch.
Okay.
But this movie comes in a weird part because they probably had the biggest hit of their career in 2000 with Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? So after that, they do The Man Who Wasn't There, which is like, I feel like forgotten.
Yeah.
It's such a good movie. And I know you just did a video on Gandolfini. He's excellent in it. It's a really good movie. They follow that up with Intolerable Cruelty, which I think this was kind of their first writer for hire movie. Like they wrote this. This is the only movie in their credits the only movie that they've directed that has other writers credited.
This is Intolerable Cruelty.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the script was kind of kicking around, and for whatever reason, they directed it.
Yeah.
Now, like,
and that's George Clooney and Catherine Zeta-Jones. Okay.
And it's very light. It's a throwback to those kind of romantic farce comedies. It's good. You can this movie. A lot of people think Ladykillers is their worst movie. I don't like the idea of worst movie with them because, like I said, I think all their movies are good. They have lighter and heavier movies.
Okay.
Intolerable Cruelty is their lightest movie.
Okay.
It's very silly. Have you seen it?
It's been a very long time. And here's a quick aside about Intolerable Cruelty. My grandmother, who is 88 years old, owns like 4 DVDs, and Intolerable Cruelty is one of them.
Really?
So that tells me how, like you're saying, I feel like it's one of those movies that's supposed to like be harken back to the days of the screwball romantic comedy.
And that's what it is. And it does it fine. Like they've got a good hand when it comes to that. But you've got Intolerable Cruelty followed up by Ladykillers. But I feel like these two movies, especially, like as you had said earlier with Ladykillers, they basically wrote it for Sonnenfeld. And I just don't think this is the only two movies they weren't totally invested in.
Okay.
Like, I'm looking at their other filmography and you can tell, like,
sure,
they had their hearts in those movies, where I don't know if they had their hearts in these two. Especially
but at that point, I mean, you know a lot more about them than I do. Like, why do the movie? If the directing falls, are they that like invested in the project that they want to see it through, or?
Well, I'll tell you this from my own, this is a total guess because I don't know the men. You look at Intolerable Cruelty and the Ladykillers, I think they just wanted to have fun. They wanted to make 2 fun movies. Watch The Man Who Wasn't There. I love it. It's a great movie. It's not fun necessarily. It's pretty dour, But I think they just kind of wanted to just kind of cut loose a little bit. And said, fuck it, we're the Coen Brothers.
Have they ever said directly that they love the original of Ladykillers?
Can I be honest with you?
Yeah.
I don't know if and there's a few out there. It's not like they're Thomas Pynchon. They're like, hiding their identity. They don't give much interviews. I don't think I've ever read an interview with them or listened to one. I probably should, but I'd probably find it interesting.
Yeah.
I'll prefer the mystery.
Yeah.
I like the mystery.
Because it's a weird choice to do. And it's, obviously it's not a title that I think anyone immediately is going to recognize, 50 years later. And they really do it differently. There's so much about this. They take it out of the streets of London. It's in Mississippi. Is that where it takes place?
I mean, it's certainly the bones are there, but they put their own spin on it.
A few of the story beats are there, but even that, they do it way differently. All the characters are pretty different. The soundtrack, obviously, is way different. Everything they do is drastically different. It's one of those things where you're like, did naming it the Ladykillers, was it a detriment or did it help it at that point?
I don't know. I mean, they definitely put their stamp on it for sure. Like,
of course.
You watch Lady, you're like, oh, this is a Coen movie. Like, you can tell.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if it was a detriment. People have, said like, oh, they were trying to do for like, they're trying to make another hit like Oh Brother We're Out There, but with gospel music. And the music in the movie's tremendous.
It's great. It's a great soundtrack.
It's very good. I don't know. Like, I don't know how much commercial considerations come into things with the Coen Brothers.
Yeah.
Once again, I like to keep them as mysteries. To
Sure.
me. Like,
and is this their only time working with Tom Hanks?
only time.
Okay.
And can I take it out another sacred cow here?
Yeah, please.
'Cause everyone piled on me for saying I don't like Robin Williams, and I'll elaborate on that a little bit. I'm not a huge Tom Hanks fan either, and I think this is one of his best roles ever.
It is.
And because he plays against type.
Yeah.
Robin Williams is an amazing performer. I get tired of seeing the same thing every time, and that's why I started to get tired of Robin Williams. I'm sorry, this nice guy, stand up, the integrity man, Tom Hanks persona, it's fucking boring. I don't want to see it in movies anymore. Play a villain. Like, he's excellent.
Yeah, he's
as
really
this
good.
slithering, slimy, fucking scheming man. I couldn't get enough of him.
He's really, really good.
Only time they worked with him though.
Yeah, and that's strange because he's really good in it, and yeah, I don't know where other people like stand on this movie. This is the newest movie we've ever talked about by a few decades. So I don't. For me personally, this was a movie I experienced during childhood. It might have been my introduction to the Coens. I remember watching Oh Brother Where Art Thou when it first came out, and not really understanding it because I was a kid.
Sure.
This was like the first movie I remember watching as I was a little bit older that really made me kind of like their work a lot.
Well, the big thing about the Coens is, and I'm not going to be able to describe this correctly, their movies look and feel like movies. I don't know if it's the camera movement, the framing, the lighting. You watch their movies and you feel like you're watching a movie.
Sure.
They somehow have really nailed the idea of what it is to view cinema. Like, they make movies, and I know a lot of criticisms are it's artificial or whatever. Yeah, it is. It's a movie.
Sure.
Like, especially with Ladykillers, it's so cartoonish. It's really played
Characters
up.
are cartoony. So in the original of the Ladykillers, it is, like I said, it's basically there's this scheming con man who rents a room from an elderly woman, and him and his kind of cronies, they plan to rob an armored car. They involve her without really her knowing she's involved, and then she gets wise to them, and they have to plot to kill her. So that is basically the bare bones of the Ladykillers.
Sure.
And what the Coen Brothers, basically start with here, only it's in Mississippi. And the elderly woman is played by Irma P. Hall.
Correct.
Who is wonderful in this movie.
She's very good. She's very funny.
Yeah, very, very funny. And it's established very early on in the film that she kind of has a reputation of annoying the sheriff and the police with really asinine complaints.
She's a busybody.
Yeah. George Wallace plays the sheriff, and in like one of the opening scenes, she comes into the sheriff's station to complain about loud music, and you just get the impression that, she does this a lot. So this is...
Oh, by the way, the loud music, it's so funny because they never play the song.
Right.
So it's just so funny hearing her every once in a while go, I left my wallet in El Segundo. Like, it makes her angry.
Yeah.
By the way, classic Tribe Called Quest song.
Yeah.
Left my wallet in but she left my wallet in El Segundo.
Yeah, it's the only like phrase she's able to pick out.
It's
and
aggravating her
she just keeps repeating it. So she's a widow, and she lives in this town in Mississippi. Her husband is deceased. His name is Othar. And it's one of those great touches where he has like the portrait that changes. There's a few movies I've seen do this.
So this is where a quick aside. If you're a Coen Brothers fan, or you just enjoy the movies, whatever, if you just enjoy movies, 1941, go watch Preston Sturges's Sullivan's Travels. It could be released today. It's such a good, funny, fun movie about movies. It's excellent. And basically, the gag with Othar's portrait is stolen from that movie.
Okay.
Stolen, whatever.
Yeah.
But the Coens, if you want to know where the Coen Brothers get their influences, just go watch Sullivan's Travels. It's throughout their whole filmography. You can tell this movie was an enormous influence on them.
Well, I've seen it in Mouse Hunt as well. The Old Man and Mouse Hunt.
Yes,
it changes.
he does.
It changes according to what's happening.
Also, you I think you get a glimpse of, I don't know how they pulled it off in 1941. I'm almost certain you see Veronica Lake's nipples at one point.
We're gonna have to verify that information. I think you're nuts, but
Go watch the movie.
I am gonna watch a movie. It's one that's been on my list for a long time, and I have to watch.
They were totally in the Hays Code era too.
Yeah, sure.
It wasn't pre-code,
Well,
but I don't know.
I've heard great things about it.
It's it's an excellent film.
Yeah, I will check it out.
But yeah, that's where the Othar thing comes from.
So yeah, she's widowed. She lives alone in this house, and she's renting out a room. At which point we meet Professor G.H. Dorr, Ph.D.
Goldthwaite Higginson Dorr, Ph.D.
Yeah, who's played by Tom Hanks. In the original Ladykillers, the professor is your typical British crime guy.
Kind of.
Cockney a little bit.
Apparently, the role was offered to Alec Guinness, and he said, "I'm not too familiar with this actor." But he was just like, why don't you just get Alistair Sim to play it?
Oh, yeah, it is really. He looks like Alistair Sim.
Well, he completely based the role.
Wow.
He was like, I'm just going to do this as Alistair Sim.
Like the teeth and the way the hair is.
Yep. And to credit Hanks, he didn't watch the movie.
He didn't watch it. I did read that.
He was like, I don't want to, and it's smart. He didn't want to be prejudiced. And yet they both play the character, it's just like I said, like a slithering ghoul.
Yeah.
Like,
well, I don't want to.
So ghoulish.
If you've never seen this movie, Tom Hanks plays it very much like a Southern gentleman. He is a Southern gentleman, almost like inspired by Colonel Sanders a little bit. There's some of that with the way he looks, at least.
He's certainly got the suit.
Yeah,
but
he's got a white suit, kind of
the 11 herbs and spices,
like a Sherlock Holmes-esque like jacket,
it's the
cape,
Southern dandy.
And he comes to seek this room for rent. When he is going to rent the room, this woman's cat escapes. What is R.P. Hall's character's name? Marva
Munson. But
Marva
what's
Munson.
the cat's name?
Pickles.
You let Pickles out.
And Pickles, and I wrote this line down because I thought it was so great. She wants the professor to go get the cat. And the cat's up in the tree, and the professor says, "Won't the feline tire of his lonely perch?" And it's such a great line.
Well, not only that, there's the other line. When I was a child, I was a positive lemur.
He's just great. He's
really good.
He's just oozing the accent, like you said, very like creepy, very like
and anytime he does
uneasy.
The laugh,
yeah,
it's great. I'm sorry, I want to see these guys. I'm just like, this is like, there's good performers out there that say, and I don't blame them necessarily.
Yeah,
you want to eat,
sure,
but like, how many times can Tom Hanks play the man of integrity? I don't want to see it anymore.
Yeah.
I don't want to see that. I don't want to see Will Ferrell screaming and whoa. I don't want to see
that we're never getting the end of.
We'll never. Well, it doesn't make money anymore, so you probably have. Give me something new.
Yeah.
I don't know. So it's just so fun watching Tom Hanks.
Yeah, he is. I like Tom Hanks. I'm not like you. I don't like some of the work he's done. I really like early Tom Hanks. Like, I love some of the. I mean, Big is great.
One for our podcast is maybe Joe versus the Volcano.
Oh, I would love to do that.
Oh, it's such a good movie.
He did a couple of John Candy. They're great together. So it's really nice to just see him kind of having fun with the film role again, where he's just not too serious.
And he's having a ball.
He's having so much fun. The hair, like I said, it's a very intricate costume, and he's just having fun with it. But yeah, so he gets the cat down, and then we're this is one of those things this movie does a lot differently than the original, is that we're introduced to the characters in their own element.
Yeah, that doesn't happen in the original.
Yeah, they just kind of show up together.
I could have sworn, correct me if I'm wrong, because I didn't notice it when I rewatched it.
Okay.
I could have sworn there was some little scene where it's like there's an ad in the local paper, and that's how Higginson Dorr is getting the rest of the guys. Because in the original, it's pretty clear that like they're all criminals.
Yeah.
Oh, someone recommended the professor. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they're all in this. It's like, how did the gang
He
get
says
together?
at one point, there's not a scene, but he says at one point when you responded to this advertisement.
Dude, I'm telling you, there used to be I feel like there isn't.
Dude, this DVD is from 2004 when it came out. Unless it was in theaters.
I've never. Did I imagine that?
It might be in something else, but as far as I know, it cuts right to them all in their element.
There is a line.
Yeah.
Okay. Even so, it doesn't need to be explained. I don't care. I have a huge soft spot for heist movies.
I do too. I love them.
It might be my favorite subgenre.
Yeah, I love them. And this one's like not super complicated. It's the heist is kind of the back focus to. In the original, the heist is basically the back focus to.
It's more them dealing with her.
Yeah. This, they kind of switched that a lot because we'll get to it, but like when she discovers their plot, it's very late in the movie. Where in the original, it happens a lot sooner, and the rest of the movie they're dealing with the conflict of having to deal with her.
Right.
This one she finds out late. But so before that, get that when we essentially find these criminals,
it's really cool seeing them all in their thing. I forget what the first one is.
I think it's Marlon Wayans.
Who is
Gawain?
Gawain.
Gawain
McSam. And for any of you, a little piece of trivia here. Gawain was one of King Arthur's knights on the Round Table. Yeah.
But that was Gawain. It's Gawain.
However
Same way. All right, whatever.
I'm pronouncing it like I'm from Mississippi. Gawain.
So I like Marlon Wayans. I do not like him in this movie. He is, I wouldn't say unbearable. He is very irritating to watch.
It's irritating. And so this is probably a good time to do it. There was a lot of weird criticisms of this movie when it came out. And they were all racial. That you're doing black stereotypes. And, I mean, I guess we can get into this, the Bob Jones thing.
Yeah, that plays
the
a
whole
part.
thing is she donates every month to Bob Jones University, which is a Christian college.
Yeah.
And the whole thing that the Coens were getting criticized for at the time was Bob Jones. They didn't allow black students till the 70s, and they didn't allow interracial dating till the 2000s.
Wow.
So I feel like people were being like, "Oh, you're being insensitive." Blah, blah, blah. It's like, it's just a character in a movie that does a thing. It doesn't. Not everything needs to have a 1-to-1 relation to real life.
Sure.
Like, you can find it odd that she's doing this. Like, just find it odd. You don't have to have an opinion necessarily. Like, so yeah, there's that whole thing. I know a lot of people thought Marlon Wayans was over the top.
So he played
stereotype.
His role in the heist is he's the inside man.
He's the inside man.
Their plot in this one, instead of robbing an armored car, they're robbing a casino boat on the Mississippi River called the Bandit Queen. And Marlon Wayans works as a custodian within the casino. So a lot of the characters he deals with on the inside of this casino, Stephen Root plays their boss. Wonderful.
I can't give the Coen brothers enough credit for their names. Stephen Root plays Mr. Gudge. Gudge.
Perfect.
Love that. And it's Stephen Root, so it's beautiful.
Yeah.
These little scenes.
So, yeah, I mean...
But they really did. There was a lot of criticism.
Well, you brought that to my attention. I had no idea that was the case with this.
And it's, once again, it was one of those things that was, at the time, everything evaporates quicker and quicker as more time passes.
Sure.
But, yeah, they were like, oh, it's stereotypical, blah, blah, blah. But I'm like... Who
yeah,
cares?
No,
it's not. It's an odd criticism.
I don't think the character's over the top. I think his performance is a little over the top.
He's an irritating character because he never acknowledges. What's the best way to put it? He can't just go along with the flow.
Sure, he's always got to say something.
Yeah,
against
it's always
what they're
so.
doing.
It's like it's just you're getting aggravated as a person. It's annoying. He's
Have
an
you
annoying
ever
character.
seen a few years ago? There was some screen tests that were done years ago that got leaked of Marlon Wayans for a Richard Pryor film. He was going to be playing Richard Pryor, and it's really interesting to watch.
I have to check that out.
Yeah, his impression is spot on, and I know he's a good actor, and in this I don't know, it's just he's very over the top character.
Once again, it's funny that you say this. I mean, we're going to go through all the other characters too, but I remember this is another thing about the Coen Brothers movies. Every time, the more you watch them, the better they get.
Sure.
Like, so even the ones you may not like. We'll have a debate another time about Hail Caesar, but I watched it again, and it's great. Like, their movies get better the more you watch them. And to me, that's the best kind of movie or book you can do, is that it rewards repeat, exposure.
Sure.
But goddamn,
I will say this. Ryan, a couple years ago, quick aside, told me to watch A Serious Man, Coen Brothers movie. I was going through a pretty rough, personal situation at the time, and it is a miserable film. So at the time, did not enjoy it, but I feel like going back now, I might get something new out of it.
Probably. I mean, that might be my favorite Coen Brothers movie. And it's funny, but to what you were saying, the first time I watched Big Lebowski, I was like, this fucking sucked. I was like, this movie sucks.
Yeah.
And I watched it again. I was just like, I'm an idiot. I love this movie.
We should cover the Jesus rolls. We'll come back to it. That might be a Patreon thing.
Yeah, only because he remade a French film with characters from the Big Lebowski. It doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense.
They let him do it because they're good dudes.
It's 20 years later, more than so.
But like, why would you like the Jesus in Big Lebowski was a pedophile. Like, why are you using that character for something that...
Well, I don't want to harp on about too much, but apparently in the Jesus Rolls spinoff, which for those who don't know, it's a spinoff of The Big Lebowski, directed by John Turturro, centered around the Jesus character, but apparently he was wrongly convicted, and the film deals with that. I don't know.
Does it really?
I think so.
Oh,
that's why I wanted to watch it with you.
Maybe let's... You know what? We're
going to make that commitment.
I'm going to put this in the episode because I want people to hear us. We don't really know what to do for Patreon.
We don't.
We don't want to do this almost called classic things. We want people to hear it. I don't want to put it behind a paywall.
Yeah.
But for the people that want some extra shit, maybe that's a good one.
Yeah, let's just talk about some newer stuff.
Hit us up if you want to hear that. Us talk about Jesus Rolls.
The Jesus Rolls.
Because I'm not watching that unless people want to hear about it.
So after Gwen, we're introduced to J.K. Simmons' Garth Pancake.
Easiest thing in the world.
Yeah, he is phenomenal in this as well.
I mean, how can you not like J.K. Simmons?
And I think Spider-Man was my first introduction to J.K. Simmons, but this was like my first proper introduction to like, you know, really his character portrayals and, you know, how great he can be. Playing Garth Pancake, and he is, what does he do? He deals with like animal.
It seems like he's an animal wrangler for movies,
yeah,
or commercials or stuff, because they open with they're doing the dog food commercial.
Right.
The tin is not staying on. The canteen's not staying on.
Yeah.
So they put the gas mask on him, and the dog does die.
Yeah. Did you happen to notice who's playing the humane rep?
Mr. Bruce Campbell himself.
Now,
him and the Coens are old friends because the Coens worked
Raimi,
on
right?
Evil. Yeah, Raimi. It's Raimi, Sonnenfeld, or Field. I don't know. I'm not looking it up right now. And the Coens, they're all connected.
Yeah,
like they're buddies. Like,
yeah, he doesn't have any lines. He's just there. But he's the humane rep. So, and I forget to always forget that comedian's name, Greg Grunberg. He's the director.
Or Gunberg.
That's the great thing about these little.
He's not a comic.
He's not.
He's just an actor.
Okay.
Unless he does stand.
I could be wrong. All of these little character segments, they all have like great character actors in them. The next one where we meet Lump, Blake Clark,
who honestly, the first time I watched this movie, he annoyed me more than Marlon Wayans. It
annoys me too. We talked about this a little bit,
boring, but he has some good lines because he's like,
"Professor, why don't we bribe him?"
It's a really good Lump.
He gets lines like,
"I don't know how to play the butt sack."
Like, it's...
Yeah.
But I remember him annoying me the most.
Well, we talked about this a little bit with Nothing But Trouble. You said, like, having a character that doesn't speak kind of limits what you can do. And of this crew, 2 of them don't speak.
Yeah, but...
It's a weird choice.
The other one that doesn't is probably my favorite.
He's great, but, like... So there's a Lump-esque character in the original who's, like, the heavy, and he's just, you know, the kind of dumb, muscle the operation.
Sure.
But he at least, like, isn't, like, completely brain dead. Lump, like,
no, he's characterized, and not only that, he starts to have an affinity for Mrs. Wilberforce, who's the old woman in the movie.
Right. And Lump kind of does that towards the end, but he's just really, really dumb. Like, that's the whole thing with Lump. He's really dumb. He's in high school, is that, or
I assumed it was college.
Yeah, I mean, so I feel like if you're going to go 2 silent characters, it works for the general, who we'll get to next. But this character, like, I would have liked to seen, like, maybe just not such a stereotypical, like, dumb, like, muscle the operation. But yeah, he's a football player. He's kind of the muscle. Blake Clark.
And you assume he's concussed.
Plays the coach.
I think they kind of lay that out.
He gets, like, concussed.
Once again, the Coens are... No one's better at show, don't tell, which is the golden movie rule, in my opinion, than the Coens.
Sure.
Like, they just do it. He's concussed. That's why he's so stupid.
Right.
So in a sense, I'm like, fine. Because he has his moments. And one thing that really annoys me is he starts off calling Tom Hanks' character Coach, and he drops it for Professor later.
Yeah.
And I wish he just would have kept calling him Coach
the whole time.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It kind of fits it, but...
So after Lump, we're introduced to the final member of this heist team, I guess you'd call him. I don't know how you say his name. It's Zima.
I assume.
I've seen him in a couple things. He's a good actor.
Oh, he's a great actor.
Yeah, and he plays the general. Is that really the only name we get with him, right?
The general. And I love that he was basically in Vietnam digging tunnels for the Viet Cong.
Yeah.
It's just so funny.
So he works in a donut shop, which I don't know if you've ever been to L.A., but there's so many of those type donut shops.
Really?
Everywhere.
Huh. Because I was wondering in the movie, I'm like, well, this is in Mississippi, but...
Well, I feel like that scene is supposed to be L.A. or like, I'm telling you,
it looks like L.A.
There are so many donut shops like that in L.A. But two guys come in, try to rob the donut shop.
We want that donut money.
Yeah. And
hilarious.
The general sticks his fingers up one of their nostrils.
Why does I love how Hi-Ho Donuts has money too to be
we
robbed.
want that donut money. And then an old lady comes in.
But yeah, he immediately takes charge of the situation.
Yeah. He's like dressed like a military kind of officer. He's got a little Hitler mustache, a little toothbrush mustache. Doesn't speak in the whole movie.
No, he absolutely speaks.
Oh, he does.
Yeah, there's the one part where when they decide to kill Miss Munson, Tom Hanks goes basically like, well, General, you're a Buddhist. Is there a third path available? He goes, float down river like leaf, must kill old lady. It's excellent.
That's great.
He's probably my favorite barring Tom Hanks, he's my favorite henchman in the group. Definitely.
Yeah, he's great.
And the cigarette bit is just too damn good.
Yeah, that's a... W.C. Fields used to do that.
Really?
Yeah, the cigarette in the mouth.
Did Zima learn to do that?
I don't know how it works.
I don't know the story behind that.
I don't either. It's
because here's the other thing. Here's the other big secret. When they're smoking cigarettes in movies, they're herbal cigarettes.
Yeah.
They're not real cigarettes. So I don't know if they burn differently or what you can
what
do
Ryan's
with
talking
them.
about is the general at one point gets... Marva lectures him for smoking, and
the general's constantly smoking.
He's always smoking, but he's able to like put the cigarette in his mouth. Like
he basically folds it into
mouth.
his tongue, holds it with his tongue, and keeps it in his mouth so you don't know it's there.
And then when the situation's over, he can bring it back out. So
it might be the best gag in the movie. It's so good.
So these characters come together. Tom Hanks, I don't think we mentioned it, but when he rents this room out, he looks at the root cellar of Marva and discovers that the walls are able to dig through. So their plan in this is they are going to dig to the Mississippi riverboat. Her house, kind of the back of it, lines up with where the office to the boat is, and they're going to tunnel there to where the cash is kept. And so that's why Tom Hanks is looking for houses on this street. And so he convinces Marva that these are his bandmates and that they play music, which are they bring out these really interesting looking instruments too.
Renaissance music, more
Baroque
of the Rococo era.
Yeah.
Funny enough, those instruments all built from scratch.
Oh, really?
Well, because everyone that would have those instruments wouldn't give them up for the movie because they're so fucking rare.
Yeah.
So I thought I wrote his name down. The guy built all the instruments from scratch, though.
That's funny. Like the DVD I have has like very minimal special features, but one of them I didn't watch it, but one of them is about the instruments.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I actually have to check that out.
Yeah.
As usual, Joe has the DVD in front of
the
us.
DVD.
And let me see. Hold on, let me flip this cover over. And the general does have a cigarette in his mouth.
That's
Good
great.
job.
And did you notice that the song that they play on the radio is the same?
The first one they put on is the Boccherini song, whatever that.
And that is the music that in the original Ladykillers they do the same thing. They have a record player and they play the music to let the old lady think that they're actually rehearsing music. Yeah. And in this, they have it on a little tape deck radio.
The boombox.
Yeah, little boombox they play it out of. So they get right to it. They start digging. And then I feel like right after that is when Gwen gets fired for harassing a female patron of the Bandit Queen.
And see, honestly, that's my biggest problem with the Marlon Wayne stuff. It's almost like too thin.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's weird because like he's following the girl and she's almost looking at him like she's into it, and then the next scene is Gudge is firing.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't know, this movie. It's
Did the Coen Brothers write Bad Santa?
They did Punch Up, I think.
Okay.
Like they are credited as screenwriters.
Because that whole like sequence is it reminds me of like John Ritter and Billy Bob Thornton and that, where like he's trying to reprimand him for doing this.
It's a classic. I'm not the first person to say this, but the Coens have motifs they go back to time and time again.
Yeah.
And one of them is the man behind the desk.
Oh, yeah.
Go watch their movies.
Uptight,
I feel like almost every movie has the guy talking to the man behind the desk.
And goddamn, Stephen Root is just perfect for that role.
Good. He's so good. Not only that, like later on when Gawain bribes him to get his job back, the way he opens the card and shuts it real quick.
Yeah.
It's
great.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Stephen Root, I mean, it's too good.
Watch Barry. I know you haven't seen Barry. He's really good in Barry.
I believe it.
And so, Gwen gets fired for that, and they converge at what's called the Waffle Hut.
Which this is probably the two lines that are most memorable from this movie. One is, "Madam, we must have waffles forthwith."
Yeah.
And then one that anytime a guy brings his girlfriend or a girl around, I must say it. I go, "You brought your bitch to the Waffle Hut?"
Yeah. I mean, he says it so many times.
It's excellent. And I love how Tom Hanks his character won't say that line, but he basically has to be like,
I am most concerned as well. I must admit, I am also. So they're at the Waffle Hut to discuss how they proceed now that Gwen's been fired, and Garth Pancake brings his girlfriend named Mountain Girl, who the professor refers to as Mountain Water.
They fuck that name up constantly. Yeah. Mountain River, Mountain Water. It's great. They never say it right.
Yeah, and they're concerned because they thought this was it. No one else is in on this plan. And Garth is like, "Oh, I always I don't keep anything from Mountain Girl." And that's when Marlon Wayans delivers the line, "You brought your bitch to the Waffle Hut," over and over again until it gets heated between them.
Not only that, you pit them against each other, and they both look like idiots.
Yeah, they're the only two that really get into it most of the movie. They fight.
I feel like the people trash the Coen Brothers for this stuff because they don't like being exposed themselves. And I think the Coens are basically saying, you're all idiots.
Yeah.
And that's a constant refrain, or at least a constant criticism with them, is that, the Coens don't respect their characters, or these are not real people. I never got that criticism with the Coen Brothers, that, they treat their characters with disdain and stuff. It's like, what are you talking about?
I want to know if the Waffle Hut is real. That's what I want to know.
There's Waffle Huts everywhere.
There's Waffle Houses. Is there Waffle Huts?
I have a feeling they tweaked the name a bit.
I love a good diner scene, especially during a heist movie where they have to talk about that.
There does seem to always be a diner scene
and this
in
is
heist movies.
Not only that, I think the Coens do a lot of diner stuff, I feel like. I might just be thinking of the Big Lebowski scene with the toe.
I'm going to look at their filmography here. Yeah, you're just kind of thinking of that.
I just love that scene.
That's a great scene.
I'm finishing my coffee. So Lump actually suggests that they just bribe Stephen Root's character, what's his name again? Mr. Gudge. And that's what they do to get Gwen hired again, because a big part of their plan is having that inside man.
You have to have the inside man.
You have to have the inside man.
Doesn't work.
So he gets back, and then after that scene, I think is what is my favorite scene in the film, when the sheriff drops by to let Marvin know that he did talk to the neighbors about their loud music, and the professor freaks out because he doesn't want the law enforcement to know of his presence, know he's there. And Marva is insistent that the sheriff come in to meet the professor, who was renting a room there. And she brings him in, and the professor's nowhere to be found.
It is great, too, because the camera moves in and does that Dutch tilt angle, and he's and he's gone. It's excellent. So good.
They come in, and they're looking for the professor, and she's, "I know, he was just here." So they go up to his bed, and the whole point, the sheriff thinks that she's out of her mind, because he believes that already, and now he's really thinks that.
Right.
So they go up to his bedroom. She looks in there. He's not there. And she's,
you make a good point that it really, because it comes to the last scene of the movie, he's like, this woman's out to lunch.
It's made very clear. So as she's about to close the door, she hears a creak, and she moves towards the bed. And she gets down, looks under the bed, and Tom Hanks, the professor's under there with the cup of tea.
Professor, what you doing under the bed?
She starts pissing herself, hysterically laughing. She's like, "What are you doing under there?" And they just cut to what the sheriff sees, which is just her on, all fours, looking under the bed, laughing. And he's like, she's out of her mind. It's just so funny. And he's telling her to be quiet. And he has the best that he has the cup of tea with him still. He's holding on to it. And he's just trying to, it's great.
I'll miss months of my pages going off.
So he leaves without ever meeting the professor. So no one in the town is aware.
Beyond her friends.
Oh, her friends who do, later on.
But that happens in the original. I wanted to ask you, the authorities, as it were, it's the same thing in the original. They don't know that has borders.
They don't know.
Because she's the same thing. She's
Correct.
the busybody who's in the thing. Because it's kind of interesting, because it's it makes sense in the end, where it's no one knows these people exist.
Yeah.
Because they do all just disappear. There's that scene where Garth Pancake is explaining how the plastic explosive is inert, And easiest thing in the world. You can hit it with a hammer, it don't matter. And he hits it with a hammer, and he blows his fucking finger
As
off.
they're trying to get Marva out of the house for an evening somewhere, the professor has arranged for something.
She was going to go see a music recital.
Yeah.
In another town.
And I only came back to this because I have another professor line written down. The cat gets startled after the explosion, but also runs away with Garth's finger. And as Marva's leaving the house, sees the cat getting out yet again, and she tells the professor, please, you have to get the cat. And he says, well, the general will recover the severed digits. And the general runs after the cat, and it's great.
That's another thing I want to touch on is that the two characters that are at each other's throats the most is Gwen and Garth. Mm-hmm. And it's funny, when Garth loses his finger, the only one that seems to care and trying, you can sew it back on, is Gwen.
Yeah.
So it's like, once again, it's that weird thing is like...
They have a couple moments where they get along. The IBS scene, they kind of...
Yeah. If they both lived a little longer, they probably would have got...
Well, so that's what we're getting at. When they do botch this heist...
Not to cut you off, I apologize, my good sir. There's a great scene where Mrs. Munson brings Higgins and Dora up to show him Othar's fife.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just a really funny line where Tom Hanks' character asks her, did Othar ever blow the shofar? And for those of you who don't know, the shofar is a kind of a Jewish thing. It's a ram's horn, blow the shofar. Yeah. And it's just because of her accent and everything. She goes, Othar never blew no shofar. I would assume he didn't blow any shofars, but it's just was it intended that way?
Dude, I could watch this character, Tom Hanks' character, read literature in an armchair in front of a fireplace.
And that's the best part. He's reciting Poe throughout the movie. It's fantastic. He
is great in this fucking role.
He's really good.
So they dig this tunnel, and basically what happens is they get into the money room where it's counted. On the inside, Marlon Wayans seals up the hole. They plaster it shut, so it looks like the money just vanished. And
so I'm a big, like I said, heist movies are probably my favorite subgenre.
Yeah.
I'm so forgiving.
So how do you rank this heist?
Well, there's a camera in the count room.
Yeah, I mean that was the one thing
I was looking for it. I'm like, there's a fucking camera there.
Of course there is.
Well, and also the casinos closed at certain points, and most casinos never close.
Yeah.
So the whole thing is like,
yeah, it's very
suspend your disbelief.
I also love when they unveil the plan, they unroll the blueprint. It looks like a Home Alone drawing.
It really does.
It's got house, boat, office.
Tunnel.
It's three things on this.
Yeah, you're right. It is.
Well, I really do. I feel like the heist really takes kind of, at least in the first, it takes the back seat. They kind of carry that attitude here, but again, it's the movie. It's the longer part of the movie. So maybe there's some things that could have been, I don't know. But a bomb doesn't go off. So Garth, who's the demolition expert, crawls back in the tunnel and restarts the bomb and has to crawl out and goes off. He flies out of the tunnel. Money goes everywhere. He also has IBS. We forgot to mention that.
We're missing that big point, which when I remember the first time I watched this movie, that was my least favorite part.
It's dumb.
I love the Coen Brothers. They're not great with fart jokes and poop jokes. They don't.
It's really weird. It's really out of place.
They don't have the low browness to
Yeah.
pull it off.
So-
I have to say, I hate to say it.
Garth has IBS, and
He met Mountain Girl in an IBS retreat.
IBS retreat. He gets an IBS attack right as they're doing the heist. So Marlon Wayans' character has to take him to the bathroom, and that was another thing where I'm like, there'd be cameras picking these guys up, walking around.
I know. I thought the same thing. I think the Coens just said, "Fuck it."
They think they did too.
It's like Spielberg with the T-Rex in Jurassic Park. Wasn't there a giant cliff there? How does the T-Rex walk out? It's like, who cares?
Yeah, who cares? Watch the movie.
Yeah, who cares?
So yeah, they do get caught. Marva catches on because there's money all over. She comes down the basement. Money is flying all over the place because an explosion just went off. And she, at that point, is having an afternoon kind of tea party, I guess, with a bunch of her church.
Well, no, they were on their way.
On their way to church?
No, they were on the way to come over, I believe. I think that's what happened.
Okay.
Is that she was like, I'm not telling them to leave just because you guys are criminals.
Yeah. She wants them to play their music.
Correct.
And they obviously don't play music. So
I don't play the butt sack.
It is a good line.
Yeah. So in place of that, they all get called up, after they've just completed this heist, they get called up to talk to these old women who are over the house, and the professor recites, is it Edgar Allan Poe he recites? And again, great. Like, Tom Hanks kills it. Music, very light music playing in the background. We didn't talk that much about the soundtrack. There's some great gospel music in this movie, but there's also
all of it.
a
So
great
good.
like instrumental score. The actual soundtrack is
I'm gonna
really
fuck
good.
this up. I think Carter Burwell did the score.
Okay.
And T-Bone Burnett
Well,
kind of what's the word? Curated the
okay.
music.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, all the pieces. I mean, you and I grew up Catholic. We're used to like church music. This is not the church music we kind of grew up with. This is
Well, it's funny if you were Catholic, you were always just like, "Can we go to the Baptist church?"
Yeah, I mean, the music is great. I mean, and there's quite a few scenes we didn't really talk
He
about
smote,
them.
I smote, you don't smoke.
There's quite a few scenes where they're in the church and you get to hear the choir sing, and it's great. It's really great music. It adds so much to this movie. Setting it in Mississippi, like almost Mississippi being a character, it's great.
Yes, absolutely.
So yeah, Professor recites Edgar Allan Poe, but Marva is still not having it. They try to tell her that this money is nothing. The insurance, like
they do the same thing in both movies where they talk about how basically it's going to cost the people who actually, for lack of a better term, own the money. Like the casino, it's going to be pennies on the dollar.
Sure.
Like, so really nothing's like, they use the same line in both movies essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And then they also do that thing was like, you're an accomplice. Do they do that in this one?
they don't do it in that one.
I was going to say in the original.
In the original, she is much more an accomplice.
Yeah, she's
unknowingly.
No, but she's like worried about the police.
Correct. Basically what happens is they put the money in a steamer trunk and have her retrieve the trunk from the train station, telling her it's just instruments or her professor's trunk.
Something, yeah.
So she actually was the one. She has to play a part in the heist. That's a big thing, and
she does. Yeah, that is the big part of that movie.
And that is a really different angle that the remake doesn't do. Is it doesn't incriminate her in the way that the original does, and that would have given me it gives the original a little bit more depth in terms of the conflict that she goes through.
Agreed.
The conflicts that the team goes through. So,
well, you really believe it when they put the screws to Miss Wilberforce in the original. It's like you're an accomplice. She buys it.
She buys
and
it.
you get why she buys
Correct.
it because she did take the fucking chest from the train station.
Yeah.
Like
in this, she just caught them red-handed, and the professor tries to talk her into he'll give her a cut, and she can donate it, or they'll donate some of the money.
Talks about how they're desperate men, but they only did it for a good reason.
And she almost buys it, but then says, "No, tomorrow morning you have to go bring it back." So here, and I wrote it down. This is an hour and 17 minutes into the movie when they realize we have to kill Marva. In the original, it's halfway through the movie. So
yeah,
the Ladykillers element of this really doesn't come into play till the very end of the movie. In the original, like we said, it's a lot. The half the movie is them dealing with how to kill her, who's going to kill her.
There's not only that. There's someone tries to steal the money at one point.
Oh, yeah.
Like it's
well, that happens here.
It does. You're right. But
they carry a lot of those beats.
They really do. The beats. They take the beats.
It's just I don't know where that. A lot more happens, like the gospel music, and you get that backstory with the characters. So I think they chose to examine the characters more, which they tend to do in their movies, and they kind of forego that conflict a little bit. So yeah, they decided they need to kill Marva. It's the only way they're going to get out of this. And in the original, they draw matchsticks. In this, they draw straws from a broom. And Gwen picks the short straw first, and he's going to go shoot her through a pillow. And as he's walking up to shoot her, she's in her armchair with her back to him. He has a flashback to being a kid again. It's very much reminds him of being a kid. Is it his mother or grandmother
Mother. As far as I remember, his mother.
Mother who was yelling at him. It's like it cuts to him as a kid.
He was bringing a pup in. He found some dog. He's bringing her in. I'll take care of Mama.
Yeah.
That fucking dog.
Yeah, she starts slapping him. It's the kid from the Bernie Mac show, plays young Gwen.
Is it?
Yeah. So he has the flashback, seeing his mother. He can't do it. So this insinuates a fight, the final confrontation between Garth Pancake and Gwen. They struggle over the gun, goes off. You're quite not sure who got hit until, and then you find out Gwen's dead.
Well, I touched his carotid. You gotta love, honestly, J.K. Simmons is so goddamn good.
Yeah.
And it's his matter of fact delivery for all his lines in this movie, especially with the obviously easiest thing in the world. Like every time, like
he's so good. Great mustache. He got a great like old timey.
Yeah, and obviously okay, so Gawain dies, so they have to take him. And here's so we could talk about the original here again. In the original, they had the train depot that was behind Miss Wilberforce's place, so that's where they kept dumping bodies.
As the train goes by, they dump a body in the train.
And one of my favorite parts of the remake Ladykillers is the garbage barge.
The garbage barge,
which are miniatures, by the way.
Oh, that was real. That was practical.
Real miniatures. Look, the Coens use CGI.
Sure,
they do. So it's fine, whatever. Like, but I'm
but
sure
they shot miniatures.
There's
and
some there are like the island and the barges are miniatures, and it's just great. Every time they dump someone off the bridge, the slow, not the slow drop, but like
the music
and
accompaniment.
you hear the
birds fly.
Pump. Yeah, the birds fly off.
Yeah,
it's so awesome. But so Gawain's the first one to go.
Yeah, so they go jump to dump his body. Garth stays behind, says he's going to get things in order. But when they return, they discover that Garth actually is taking the money and running because he wanted an extra share for losing a finger, and they wouldn't give it to him. So to retaliate, I'm going to take the money.
Which is once again when the general, a few lines that he has, everyone's arguing, and he goes,
"No extra share."
Yeah,
and that's it. Like
very serious about
everyone shuts up after that.
So yeah, Mountain Girl got the van running, and he's walking to the van, has an IBS attack, keeps going, and then you think he's having another one, and even Mountain Girl says, "Oh, IBS dear," but the general is choking him out with, I don't know what you call those wires, but
I've never been able to pronounce it correct. Garrote.
Okay,
but he's garroting him.
Yeah, and you can't really see it from the angle. It looks like he's just having an IBS attack, and the next shot is they're back at the barge. And I don't know if you picked up on this. I don't know if it's intentional.
It's the best gag. It's one
really
of the
good.
best gags in the movie.
So they hold the body upside down when they drop it over the barge, over the bridge. Say that 5 times real fast.
Yeah.
And it's like a real hairy set of masculine legs, like boots on, and they drop it, and then they pick up the next body. It's the same thing. So you don't know who's Mountain Girl and who's
Quite
Garth.
frankly, I still don't now.
You don't know because one pair is like hairier than the other. One pair of legs.
I hope they just shot the same legs.
They did, I think.
You think so?
Yeah, I mean it's just the way it looks, and it's
very
great.
Very simple, good gag.
Also,
excellent.
That's another thing about the end of this movie. Like once it starts going fast. Like it's like
once they start dying, they start dying.
Yeah, because you don't see Mountain Girl get killed. You just see the second body drop.
Show don't tell, people.
So then now we just have Lump, Professor, and the General. They draw straws again, and this time the General gets it.
The one most suited for the task.
I love that. Like you're like, this is the guy that should be doing the job.
And it's the best death scene.
Yeah, it is by far.
The whole
just
everything
the
about
way
it.
Shot.
So obviously he never stops smoking. So when he goes to do this, he does the tongue thing where he puts the cigarette
in his mouth.
To mask
he's
smoke.
He's gonna strangle Marva, and cuckoo clock goes off.
The cuckoo clock goes off. We get the Dutch angles again. He spazzes. He gets scared because she's gonna wake up, and he chokes.
He swallows. He gulps.
And
he swallows a cigarette. And to his first reaction is to grab the glass of water on the nightstand. Grabs it. It's her teeth, and they're just coming towards his mouth. So he throws the glass down and starts to run. The cat is running up the steps at the same time. Pickles is running up the steps. He trips, whacks his head on the step, and then slams his head into the wall, and then just slides down the rest of the steps dead.
Neck snapped.
And it's just the Professor and Lump like looking up from the basement, like hearing what just happened. Like they know. And it's great. Like I think it's like a gospel music accompanying it, like a very solemn music. So then they are back at this trash barge over the bridge. They drop the General's body, and the Professor tells the Lump, like, it's now your responsibility. And he doesn't want to do it. He says, you could probably do the voice, I've been thinking.
What was he thinking?
I forget.
I've been thinking, Professor. I don't want to kill her.
Like something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's like, the Professor goes, oh, God, or oh, Lump, like he knows, like, I have to kill you now. So he turns the gun on the Professor and goes to fire. Nothing happens. So he points the gun at his own head.
No bullets.
No bullets. Pulls the trigger.
Why would he pull the trigger?
Shoots himself in the head. He falls over perfectly onto the trash barge. And the professor just kind of standing there looking at it and begins to recite. Because he does the raven.
He sees the raven.
He sees the raven. So, Lump has fallen over, and Professor's looking over into the night, and a raven flies past him and lands on a stone perch, like a sculpture.
Which we saw at the beginning of the movie.
Lands overhead, and he begins to recite the raven beautifully. Looks off in the distance. The raven flies off. The sculpture falls, clucks him in the head. He falls over the rail of the bridge. His cape gets caught, dead. And he's hanging there for a little bit, and then the cape rips, and he falls into the trash barge.
Yeah. I love the trash barge motif.
Yeah,
I love that.
It's great.
It's ferrying you.
Yeah.
To your garbage
to the garbage island. Again, the way the music is accompanied with him reciting the raven, it's great. It is a great scene. It's the original. They don't kind of have that elegance to the death. How
did the professor die in the original?
He falls in the train too.
It escapes me, but
he slips and falls into the.
Is that what it was?
Yeah, he falls in the train. So similar, but this is just so eloquently done, and it's such a poetic ending to this character.
Yeah.
So next morning, Marva wakes up, finds her teeth with no water in them, sees a hole in the stairs or the wall, goes down the basement. Money is still there, so she figures they must have just took off and left town.
Guilty conscience.
So. And how much money is it? Do we ever find the exact amount?
I feel like it's close to $2 million.
Yeah,
I think it's 1.2.
It's 1.something million.
So not as close to $2 million, but it's 1.2, I think.
Well, I just love and too. There's a line. I just have a little professor lines written down. The old woman is a more formidable antagonist than one had imagined. I think that's what he says to Lump at one point.
He's just relishing the line.
Yeah,
it's so. I wish someone would write for Tom Hanks like this.
Yeah,
he's such a good performer.
Yeah,
I'm just tired of him. We're going to do the right thing.
Yeah,
great, Tom.
No, he is the perfect lead to this group of misfits.
It's just funny.
So yeah, Marva goes to the sheriff, played by Irma, and tells him, lets them know about everything that happened, the people the professor who was staying with her, the heist. Yeah, the sheriff doesn't believe her because they just believe she's a crazy old lady at this point. So they tell her, "You keep the money." And she's
because they don't believe her.
They don't believe her. It's
why the fuck would this money from this casino heist end up
in her
Marva
basement?
Munson's basement? Doesn't make
even though her house borders the back of the. Anyway, so they just tell her to keep the money, and she says, "Well, I could donate it," and they said, "That's a great idea. Donate it." So she donates the 1.2 million to Bob Jones University.
See, that bothered people. I think that's a funny
It just kind of shows how out of touch she is with what is acceptable and what she should be saying this money to. Gullible old lady.
There's always been this knock against the Coens that they hate their characters.
Yeah.
And I'm like, one, I don't think the Coens hate their characters, and two, even if they do, who cares? It's the dumb criticism. Oh, the Coens don't like their characters. It's a movie.
Well, when I said earlier that this was my introduction to the Coen Brothers in a way, because I remember as a kid when this came out, I was about 12 when it came out, but this was the first time I saw a movie that ended. I was like, that's not how movies end. It just, you don't expect it. And
I think I had that when I first started watching Coen Brothers movies, I had the same thing where I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah. But in fairness, that's one of the things carried over from the original is that the entire crew dies. They sabotage themselves. So that's really not the thing to.
What does Miss Wilberforce want to do with the money in the original?
That I don't remember. I didn't take notes on that. I just watched it for reference.
I just watched it too. Shit. I'm interested in what she did with it.
So, reading from the Wikipedia article, this is on the original Ladykillers. Mrs. Wilberforce is now left alone with the plunder. She goes to the police to return it, but they do not believe her story. They humor her, telling her to keep the money. She is puzzled, but finally relents and returns home. Along the way, she receives a banknote of a large denomination with a startled, starving artist. So she gives the money to...
An artist?
Yeah.
Perhaps?
It just says, along the way, she leaves a banknote of large denomination with a startled, starving artist. So I guess she leaves part of it. But same thing.
Either way, the money went to a bad place. That's the funny thing. The money does not go to a good place.
Yeah.
Either way.
But it was from a vice, a den of vice, as they say.
Den of thieves.
Den of thieves. So, yeah. And at the very end of the movie, as Marva's coming home to this news, she's so excited. Pickles escapes. Pickles runs through the town. You get some great shots of the town. Runs to the bridge. And as the trash barge is passing underneath it, drops Garth's severed digit.
The last remaining vestige
Yep.
of the Ladykillers.
Drops it onto
Gone.
into the barge.
To be spirited away to Garbage Island.
And that's where we end it. Yeah, great, really interesting ending.
You know what's weird? This is the first movie they directed together.
Oh, really?
Credited as directed together. Joel's the older one. He always got credited as director, even though they shared duties on all these things. And
Sure.
Ethan always got credited as producer. Apparently, these are DGA rules that you have to be an established duo. So I'm looking at it. Let me count this real quick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. This is 10. This is the Ladykillers is the 11th movie they did. Do you not think they were established as a duo maybe before then?
Yeah, that's crazy.
So it was literally, as far as I know, the only reason, and they are now, since that movie, they've been credited as co-directors. That was it. The only reason they never did that was a DGA requirement. It's insane.
That is insane.
It's funny too, man, because Ladykillers was considered their worst movie by a lot of people. And it really, I remember, I was like, fuck, Coens are kind of...
Yeah.
They're adrift on an ice float a little bit here. They're not going to be able to, what are they going to do next? Do you know what they made after Ladykillers?
Let me think. 2005 it would have been, or what year?
2007. They made Ladykillers in 2004. Their next movie was in 2007.
Burn After Reading?
No Country.
No Country. Wow. So
Which I had, for this, I rewatched it. It's nearly perfect.
Yeah.
So they follow up what a lot of people consider as their worst movie with a movie that I think won Best Picture.
They're just doing what they want. I mean, I think that's what ultimately wins out. But that's a great,
okay, you think we suck? Here's one of the best movies ever made.
A lot of directors seem they get caught in a loop there where they should never get back to it, and they've been doing consistent work for decades now.
I mean, just to go, it's almost seems like a fuck you to me. Like, oh, you think we suck?
Yeah.
Here's no
you
Country
haven't
for
seen
Old
anything
Men.
yet. Yeah.
And that movie is perfect.
Yeah, so I mean, we watched both the Ladykillers.
Mm-hmm.
You're, as I said at the beginning, a really big fan of the Coen Brothers. How do you feel this movie holds up with the original? How do you feel it holds up with their filmography in general?
So I liked this movie more than the original. I think basically because, to be frank, I'm American, and I don't think there's any better contemporary filmmakers in their sense that they're the best American filmmakers.
Yeah.
Their love for Americana is almost, it borders on fetishistic, at certain points where I'm like, what is the deal with these guys? These guys love this country. And I don't know, maybe it's just London, I don't have a great relation. I don't, I'm not from London, but Mississippi I can kind of get. So I think that's why I like this movie more. In their filmography, I feel like this movie gets such a bad rep because it's a Coen Brothers movie. And they, if anyone else made this movie, they'd be like, this movie's hilarious. This movie's so funny. What an amazing Tom Hanks performance. It's shot beautifully.
Yeah.
The music's so good. Irma P. Hall, what a great role for her. If the Coens didn't make this movie, it would be remembered more fondly. The fact that they're so good.
Yeah, I mean, if Sonnenfeld had done it might have had a different response. He might have done some different choices as far as casting goes. Who knows? I fall on the same side as you. I never disliked this movie. Rewatching it for the first time in a couple of years, minor annoyances here or there, like we talked about, with some plot elements that get glanced over. I did like in the original that the old lady is a part of the heist itself. That's something I would have liked here. I would have liked...
She really is implicated in the first one, whereas this one she's not. She's not really implicated.
I would have liked if some of these characters weren't so cartoonish and outlandish.
It's the Coens at their most cartoonish.
Yeah.
And it works at certain points with Tom Hanks. And quite frankly, it doesn't, with Lump and Gawain. It gets annoying.
This is Tom Hanks makes he's just great in this movie. If you've never seen it, and you want to watch Tom Hanks do something really different that you haven't seen before, just watch it. I know we kind of spoiled the ending, but we're leaving out so much.
We're always spoiling the endings here,
of course. But we're leaving out so much of his little speeches and the things he says throughout the movie. It's just wonderful. He's great.
The nuance in this performance is so good. If you like Tom Hanks and you haven't seen this movie, I don't know what you're doing.
Dude, I remember seeing the trailer for this. I forget what it was before, but it's that shot of the door opening and Tom Hanks is there, and it's like, what is this? This is interesting.
It's once again, I feel like this is going to be a common refrain on this podcast. Completely unfairly maligned movie.
Absolutely.
I feel like the race thing got in the way. Everyone wanted to take their hits. Like, oh, the Coens are
also, here's an interesting thing about this movie, real quick, before we wrap it up. It's rated R. Excluding 90 F-bombs, I think I read somewhere.
It's 80 to 90.
Is that the only thing that pushes it into R-rated territory?
80 fucks will put you there.
I mean, 3 will?
It used to be 1 or 2.
So yeah, check out The Ladykillers. It's unfairly maligned, as we have said. It's
just good.
It's a good movie.
Especially if you like heist movies, you like Tom Hanks, just watch it.
Watch it. Check
You'll
it out.
Enjoy it.
Yeah. So I think we're gonna come back way sooner than it took between episodes.
Yeah, because I'm actually going away. Look, Joe's gonna throw it up on his Twitter. And we're going to do it in like the next 2 days. So
yeah,
Tracy or 1941 next.
Yeah, we're stuck between two of those.
I think we're going to do both, but what do you want next?
What do you want first? 1941, which is Steven Spielberg's comedy film he made in the late 70s, I think 80s, but really notoriously panned. His first flop, I believe. And then obviously Dick Tracy, we talked about it when we were talking about Nothing But Trouble and set design. It's something that we grew up with that we haven't seen in years. So it's out there. It's out there to you. Get at us on Twitter, as always, on Patreon, patreon.com/hatsofentertainment, and Twitter at AlmostCClassics.
And you can find Joe at Joe Ramoni. You can find me at Ryan Lancello. And we're all connected at the Almost Called Classic thing. So look us up.
Join the conversation, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening, guys.